Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending November 19th. We've got a big show tonight, but before we get to it, I want to tell you, next week is Thanksgiving. We will be taking that week off. No podcast next week. Ralph and I, Dave, Mark, we're all going to be in a turkey coma next Thursday. And if I'm hanging out with Ralph next Thursday, I'm pretty sure I'm going to might be more than just a turkey coma.
You know, Thanksgiving is my traditional mimosa day. So, whenever I host people, it's mimosa. So I don't know if it'll be a mimosa hangover or a turkey hangover, but it'll be one of the two.
I hope you got a lot of turkey, buddy. All right, our guest tonight with the show, we got William Bernanke here again. I always call him William, but you know what? They've been winning. They had a good week last week. We're not going to give them the respect anymore. I'm going to call him Will from now on. And he is from CG Analytics, and he's going to tell us where the money's going this week, and both college and NFL action. We also got another segment in tonight's show of Handicapper's Corner. Ralph Michaels and Dave Cokin are here to break down the college and NFL games for us and provide us with some best bets. And that'll be at the end of the show. So, and our guy behind the controls, Mark Seidel, making sure we all sound good. And later in the show, we're going to have a special guest later. We'll tell you about that in the last segment. Best bets, look forward to that. So let's get this party started and bring in tonight's first guest, Will. How you doing, my man?
Oh, great, gentlemen. You know, just getting ready for Thanksgiving. A busy time of the year, but certainly the most fun time of the year. Well, second most fun, besides the World Series. That's my favorite week there.
Absolutely. Now, you can follow Will on Twitter at the Moneyline Guy. Will, last week, better week for the books than the last couple Sundays, huh?
Yeah, it was hard to get worse, so anything was better at this point. But certainly NFL was good. College football, pretty good as well. Some under-the-radar games came in for us that people wouldn't expect the books to need for a big amount. But I'll get right into those games if that works for you guys.
Tell me those under-the-radar games that helped you out last week.
Sure. College-wise, Wake Forest winning outright was a big win for us. As you probably saw on your screens, that had some significant line move, and that was directly correlated to public money on NC State. So Wake pulling it out late in the game there was a huge win for us. Boise State winning was big. That same, I believe that was the same night. I could be wrong, but I believe that was the same night.
Wake Forest was Thursday. Boise was Friday.
Friday,
yeah.
Okay.
And let me ask you a question, though. Going to that Wake Forest game, I mean, most of the money was probably based on the starting quarterback being out, right?
Yeah, that and I guess just NC State's, they were at home, and they played much better at home this year than certainly on the road. They've gotten spanked there twice.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but, all the components there added up to NC State being a big liability. And then, of course, this was surprising. Not under the radar, but surprising, was Clemson covering over BC. We took a lot of dog money. I guess bettors are just figuring Clemson to some point have a stinker, and that didn't really happen. Even it was like a workmanlike win. Baylor covering, big line move with Iowa State last week. A lot of money on Iowa State. And Baylor getting home there at 14. They lost by 14, covered all the numbers. And then Arkansas covering, which was that made the Todd Gurley play look like nothing. I'm sure you guys talked about that. That was ridiculous. 2 times in a row, guy going down. I'd never seen anything like that before. And then some of our losers last week, Kansas, this was an under-radar game. Kansas covering was a pretty big loser for us. A lot of underdog money. Couldn't figure out what the story was in that game, but regardless, Kansas coming, getting home.
Kansas has been getting played a few times this year. I've talked to some different books, and one of the other guys in town at the Westgate a couple times has said they've had money on Kansas, and that's not something you usually hear.
It's those people that were betting the Browns last year and still have some pain left in their, in their pocketbook that they keep betting those ugly teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kansas fired their coach. That's giving bettors newfound confidence in them, I suppose, and it certainly paid off last week. And Ohio State covering was not good for us, and then Notre Dame covering against Florida State. That looked like it would be Florida State money. Then day of game, we just got all Notre Dame money, and them covering wasn't a very good result for us. But overall, a good day.
Will, I want to start the Saturday action with, Dave and I were on the Las Vegas Sports Line, and Jason Simbel was with us, and we talked in length about the West Virginia game. So before we get to any other college football game on Saturday. Talk to us about the amount of the action you're getting on West Virginia.
West Virginia, it's been one-sided with West Virginia thus far, even though the line has not moved. Let me just pull up my details here on that game.
You know, West Virginia just continuing to play well, and, you know, they won at Texas and scored that 2-point late conversion, and
they're a fun team to watch. Fun team to watch, West Virginia.
Yeah. And Will Greer just looks like he can beat any team at any time. He's got so much confidence.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's great, Will Greer. You know, certainly shook off that Kansas game and that stinker he had at Iowa State.
Yeah.
Here, this is what I wanted to tell you. Yeah, it got up to 6 today. Here's what. That's what I wanted to say. It was 5 this morning. I did that video. It covers, and it's now at 6, and it's all West Virginia, all public money in West Virginia. We're talking 92% West Virginia money right now. So it looks like we may need Oklahoma State, and that's not a great prospect. It's saying they're going to have most likely a letdown after that. Bedlam loss.
Oh yeah, we just talked about that on another program. How do they get back up? I mean, this is a 5-5 team. Yes, they need another win to become bowl eligible, but they gave everything they had against Oklahoma. Will, on Sunday last week, an interesting game I want to ask you about. I know it was a game that helped the books a lot, but this is one of those ones where see if your house was the same way. New England and Tennessee. Anytime New England loses outright, that's going to be a big, profitable result for the book because the public just bets New England week after week. Was that the case again last week? Yeah,
absolutely. Believe it or not, that game was our second biggest winner of the day, right behind Dallas winning outright. So Tennessee winning outright was huge for us, gave us some momentum going into the afternoon games.
And the point I want to make, there was not a sharp that I talked to last week that wasn't on Tennessee. And it just shows, people think about, pros versus Joes, and, the pros just outweigh the money. They don't outweigh the money when it comes to the NFL. The Joes can go to the window, and all those $100, $200 bets, they add up real quick to negate, a sharp coming in and putting 5,000 or something on one side. And it's a classic case. The Joes got the money there and or lost the money there. The pros got it, but it was a profit for you is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and you know what else it does, Marco, as well? I'm sure you guys touched on this many times. It holds that line down. It didn't get to 7, and that's because of some of the more sophisticated bettors are taking the points with Tennessee, and it's keeping that number at bay. If ordinarily that game would blow up like the Philly-Dallas game, it'd go up to 7.5, 8.
Which this is a good handicapping lesson for the average guy that maybe doesn't know how to handicap but wants to learn to watch the screen, and that's a perfect indicator. When you keep seeing those ticket counts rising and rising and rising and the percentage staying there, that it's all one-sided on the ticket count, yet you're not seeing that line move off the favorite, you can bet that underdog, and I'm telling you, you're going to win more than you lose long-term just blindly doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you're getting a competitive number, sure.
Moving on to Saturday's action, where is the Sharps at this week?
I got 3 games here, that I've noticed some. Again, Pitt, a high 4-figure bet with the Pitt Panthers here. So this one was the number 1 on the list. West Virginia, a high 4-figure bet, took there. Nothing otherwise, it's all public money, but that one at a lower number, as you see, it's 6, so we took that one earlier. And Ohio State, this is a kind of an odd game. You'd think it'd be the other way in the Ohio State game. They're playing Maryland?
Yeah.
You would think that the money's coming in on the dog, and it did. And we took a low 4-figure bet on Ohio State when it peaked at its lowest point there. So those 3 right there, I'd say, seeing the most respected money right now.
You know what, Will, just for our listeners to give a concept is, it doesn't have to be a high-profile game. Again, this is a game we talked about earlier on the radio with Jason, and it shocked me that he told us, UNLV is out at Hawaii this week, and you actually took sharp bets on both sides of this game. So you would think that who the heck would worry about UNLV Hawaii, yet respected bettors on both sides of the boards betting opposite side. Obviously, that's good for the house when that happens. But, sharps doesn't mean these big value games. It means anywhere they find value.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially a game like that where it's teetering on a key number 7. The bettors may lay 6, 6.5, and then take the 7, 7.5 to try to get a middle there. That makes a lot of sense in games that are hanging around those key numbers.
One of the games I want to ask you if you're where the action's at, because it's going to be a fun game to watch, I think. Notre Dame and Syracuse. They're playing at Yankee Stadium, so just going to be fun for the New Yorkers there to get Notre Dame in the building, and of course there'll be a following for Syracuse as well. But we all know Notre Dame travels well wherever they go. There's fans in every city. Where's the action coming on this one?
Oh, this earlier today, got up to 10.5. And considering it's a neutral site, the people kind of forget that. They look at the screen and they see the two teams, Notre Dame on bottom, and they might think the game's in South Bend. But it got to 10.5. Then we took some Syracuse money there. So right now it's running fairly even. I'd say about 52% is on Syracuse, but nothing to the point where we really need anything here. So we're getting in an ideal situation.
Do you think that'll be your highest volume game, being two top 13 opponents ranked this week, with the SEC basically having their FCS bye week?
That's true. I don't think it'll be our highest, but certainly in the top 5, just because the spread's on a bit of the high side. Right now, the biggest handle game, I don't know if this will end up being Saturday, but Michigan State, Nebraska, right now is the biggest handle game at, and the spread being -1. Michigan State's a 1-point favorite.
Well,
but, who knows what it'll end up.
Let's talk about a game that's a close line game in the Big 12. And, there's 4 top 25 teams in the Big 12. They're outside looking in as far as the playoffs go. But, when you have Texas, the way Herman has coached, you have to fade Texas as a favorite and play on them as a dog, which means I would think the public's on Iowa State. Is that true this week?
Absolutely true. Right now, they're taking Iowa State 58%. Nothing too crazy, but certainly you can just sense the dog money coming in. 58% is on Iowa State, and right now the money line as well, about 53% money line.
Yeah, I agree with the Iowa State. So this is a team that's flying under the radar. They're playing good football down the stretch, and ever since they made the switch at quarterback, this team's, I think, 5-0 now. Yeah, Iowa State.
Purdy's won all 5 games.
Yeah. And they do something in the Big 12 that most teams, I don't even think they can spell it, but they play defense, Iowa State. It's something you don't see in the Big 12.
I just spell it with a capital D, Marco, because I can't spell very well.
Well, you just hold the D and then get a fence, like the commercials. Moving to the NFL, obviously there's going to be the big game we'll be talking about Monday night, but where's the action from the Sharps on the Sunday card?
Now, this is crazy, and as under the radar as you can get for the NFL. We've had some big money come in on the Cardinals. Took a mid-5-figure bet and a low 5-figure bet on the low 5-figure money line, mid-5-figure on the point spread. Arizona Cardinals. Not sure I could trust them in this spot, but that's what we've seen here. Biggest one.
Well, us being here in Vegas, we know they won't admit it, Will. I wish they would just come out and say it. But, the Raiders are tanking. And if you're tanking, this is the one game you cannot win. You don't want to win the game with the other team that can get the worst record in the NFL. They got to lose this game so they secure that number 1 draft pick, another one. I mean, they're going to have so many of them. I don't know what they're going to do with all of them. But I hate any time I hear that. The players, they know what the organization is doing and thinking. But if you're a player, your pride as an athlete, you just don't want to go out there and lose. And this line keeps climbing and climbing. I don't want to play it. But at some point, I don't want to lay those points with Arizona. I'm sorry.
No, exactly. And, the Giants, this might have affected the line, too. The Giants coming through with a real big win on Monday night for their draft, blowing their chances of the number 1 pick. So maybe bettors figure, well, Oakland's in the driver's seat right now for the number 1 pick, to your point, and might go down here heavily. But again, the pride at some point has to take over, and even if they do win, chances are if you finish 2-14, you should be in puncher's chance to get that first pick.
Will, there's always one team in the NFL every year that goes on a run. They start winning ATS after ATS, start covering every game in a row. The offense is doing awesome. The defense is doing good enough. And that's New Orleans this year. And, I think the line probably should be higher in this game, but you have the Super Bowl champs coming in to the Superdome. Tell us about that game.
Yeah, well, just to backtrack a little bit, last week it wasn't so bad with the Saints winning, killing the Bengals, because we did take some late Bengals money to offset the Saints' liability. So if people figure that's the case, that was a little different story.
You could thank Marco for that.
Yeah. But this week it certainly has an inflated feel. But nothing would ever compare to what we saw with the Patriots a few years ago. So it's hard to really get to the point where we're in that situation. But at least in here, we feel comfortable with this number 8.5. That we don't think it'll get to 10, where you get that tremendous buyback. And these are kind of dead numbers anyway at this point. And Philly's a capable team. If you could pick a team here that maybe is underrated and undervalued at this point because of how they've looked recently, Philly, you feel like you give them somewhat of a chance here to hang around, with their coaching staff, and certainly, the quarterback was, pretty decent.
Well, let's get to the big one. And I tell you what, as far as games this week for primetime, you've got Packers-Seattle for the Thursday night game. You've got Minnesota and Chicago for the Sunday night game. And then you wrap the week up with Rams and the Chiefs. This is probably the best week we've had for the 3 TV games. Where's the money at, and how much of a headache was it when they moved this game from Mexico City back to L.A. as far as tickets already bet?
Oh, we weren't in a bad spot at all with that. We had very few written, and it was a good timing as far as when the game was taken off the board, so that wasn't a factor. But as far as what we're seeing here, this might be unprecedented when you have a team that's of the Rams' caliber, and let me just pull this up here.
I believe they said
here we go.
This is only the 6th time in 30 years where two teams have been 9-1 or better that have faced each other at all. So in 30 years, you do have a historic precedence here with the records on these teams.
Yeah, the Giants and Niners, I recall, in 1990. I mean, being a Giant fan, I can't forget that 7-3 debacle loss. They should have won. But that was something that was 10-0 and 9-1 back then. But this, when was the last time you see a 9-1 team where the books actually need them to cover? I mean, and this is like the third time in recent weeks. We need them to cover against Seattle. They didn't. Backdoor there. The Rams, the Packers game, we needed them to cover there. Again, a team that's 6-1, 7-1 at the time. And, of course, Gurley goes down at the goal line. No fault of his. But this is a rare instance where we're going to need the Rams again, it looks like. I'm confident to say right now we're talking 90% of the cash is on Kansas City with the points. 92% money line, and it's the other thing, 95% is on the over here. I think bettors you couldn't set the total high enough. They're just going to keep betting it over. But rare time we'll need a team that's 9-1.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little later when we talk about this game and break it down. But let me just ask a basic question. I mean, when it gets to Monday, you've got all this college basketball action, football action, NFL action. Could this be one of the highest tickets written for an NFL game this regular season?
I would say so. I'm confident to say that this could be the top three handle game and ticket game of the year, and it certainly couldn't be a better time with a holiday week.
Well, just going to that total for a second, when you guys are setting the number on this game, we talked about the changing of the guard because it's become, such an offensive-oriented league. But yet you guys know that there's so many sharps that once a number hits a number, doesn't matter what the teams are, but it hits a number, you're going to get some of that under money from, I don't even know if I want to call them the sharps anymore, maybe the numbers guys that just can't bring themselves to go over that number. But it's a different league now, and we've seen that, in baseball. You never saw a total, it's 6, when it was on the low end of it, and, there's times we've had a couple pitching matchups that it really should have been, a 5.5 should be there. But, there's a ceiling and there's a floor. Are we close to that ceiling here with this game? Or because if this blows over the total, and I really do think it's going to go over. I don't see these defenses being able to stop the other one. The only way I don't see it going over is if one of the team gets separation, and then you got one team trying to milk clock as opposed to the other team trying to score. Then you might not get the total. But if both of these teams are like a boxing match where they're within a score and they're trading punches, I don't see either team taking a foot off the gas, and I just see it going over the total.
Yeah, well, especially being at a conference game, that could also factor into the game being a little looser played. It's not the game plan may not be like it would be in a conference game where you're playing for home field advantage or a division rival or something along those lines. So that could certainly be a factor here, especially if this game is within 7-10 points. It's not a, like you said, separation there. But as far as where the number goes or how high, I mean, let's just say for argument's sake this game goes over and lands on 73. Who knows? I mean, you could start treating it like college games at some point. Some of these teams you have to.
Will, let me ask you this question, and we tell our listeners this all the time just to try to educate them. Your job isn't to put a line where it should be. Your line is to put a line where you're getting equal money on both sides. I mean, and is there a place where you say, well, this is high enough. Let's see where the money goes, and if the money pushes it higher, fine. But why risk your exposure by making it too high?
Yeah, exactly. You put a number out you're comfortable with, and that makes sense, that you feel like you're not going to get overloaded on one side, and then you see how people react early, and you can always make adjustments once, especially early in the week when things are kind of low. You can always make adjustments at that point, considering where you put the number.
Remember, probably going back to Robert Griffith, RG3 days at Baylor. Every week you would see the total come out. It would come out at whatever it was, high 60,
73, and it'll go to 77, 78. Yeah,
it's just, you couldn't put the number high enough, and they still were, betting them, and they were still cashing those tickets. So I think we're at that point with some of these offenses in the NFL. Hey, Will, good stuff, and I want to tell our listeners, you and Kelly, our reporter Kelly in Vegas, do that Sunday morning report. It's the last, most up-to-date report of where the money's coming in on Sunday morning. And let's face it, the recreational players, they haven't played the bulk of their stuff until Sunday morning. You see the lines in the sportsbook Sunday morning, all the average Joes, and you want to see where that money's at. And you guys provide all that information with your 2-minute warning each and every Sunday morning. And we appreciate you doing that. And our viewers love it. I mean, they tune into that. I don't know if they're tuning in for the information or just one last look at Kelly before the weekend's over, but either way, it's good stuff, Will.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think it's great for bettors, too. It gives them some reassurance if they certainly like a side, like an underdog, that they feel like, well, they're on the side that the house needs, and if that's the case, that's how they're betting, then it gives them some reassurance to know they made the right decision where they can sleep well. Or if a bettor's trying to, if bet's a favor early in the week and the line blows up, that they feel like they're on the right side. So, and it helps them shop for lines, too. Like if you want to bet an underdog or whoever, day of game, you know where maybe the best book to get the most competitive number you want.
Well, I have one more question before we leave off. And, before I get to that question, I wish you and your family and all the people at CG a very happy Thanksgiving. Since we're not going to be on next week, is the Thanksgiving week one of your biggest weeks because of those 3 NFL games on Thursday and then add the Sunday and Monday card on?
Yeah, it's right up there. I mean, it rivals conference championship week. I wouldn't say it rivals Super Bowl week, but certainly conference championship week. And it's just it's great. It's a great week, and it goes by so fast. You wonder what happened.
The Friday, you have to add the Friday in there.
With all the daytime,
college football. It's like giving you 2 Saturdays.
Friday,
Yep. Because all of the wives are out shopping on Black Friday, and all the guys that are off work are at home eating leftover turkey and watching and betting football. Well, at least I am.
Trying to make that money so she can spend it.
Yeah. Well, Marco is drooling right now thinking about turkey and Friday.
So are we all.
All right, Will, thanks, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you 2 weeks. We're taking next week off.
Sounds
Enjoy
good. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well.
All right. We're going to step out for a quick break, and when we return, Handicapper's Corner, and we've got one, Ralph. Last week you brought one that just absolutely baffled me. I've got one this week that's baffling me. We'll talk about that one next here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. We're going to take a look at Handicapper's Corner, and each week we've been bringing you guys some interesting angles. Ralph's the guy that finds these angles for us. I got one I brought to the table this week, and we'll get to that in a moment. And
you know, Marco, we were just talking about with Will Bernanke, what an incredible week it is now with basketball and Thanksgiving, with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday football, college hoops going, and then it leads into the bowls. You know, and I know with college hoops starting, I've had a slew of customers buy on for a month of service for $325 for 30 days. Tell us about a special that will make $325. It'll make you feel silly that you paid that price.
Yeah, we're offering until Monday kickoff. Now, once the Monday Night Football game kicks off,
The Monday Night Football.
The Monday Night Football. You know, talk about Monday Night Game of the Year. Well, for ESPN, this is the game of the year for them. We're going to offer, it's called, you know, we're having some fun with it, the Sexy 690. And what it is if you buy a 90-day package, you pick your favorite capper, it's all access. You get everything. As you said, every major sport except baseball is in play right now for the next 90 days. If you bought a month, as you said, it's $325. If you bought 3 of those, that would be $975, Ralph. And remember, a month package is discounted from the weekly package too, so that's already a savings. And then if you looked at buying daily, the minimum you're going to spend, you know, on a given, you know, minus my $9 Monday or $2 Tuesday, you're going to be spending $20 to $30 on, you know, a single pick package. With this package, if you use coupon code SEXY690, pick your capper, put the 90-day package in your shopping cart, enter that coupon code, that price that's a $975 value is going to instantly go down to $540. That's $6 a day.
And for those of you that don't know, Marco was asking Mark behind the counter for a calculator because 6 times 9, he couldn't quite get there. But we got it figured out now. 90 days, $6 a day, $540. Go ahead, Mark. Why are you waving at me like that? That's, you know, that finger's not polite.
Yeah, it's not. And you know what, Ralph? You would be such a great poker player because you could sit there with a straight face and just lie right through your teeth, not even blink an eye. And that's what you need to do, you know, to play poker. You got to have that poker face. I don't know why you don't come out and play with me. I'd like to get some of that dead money. But, guys, this is a great deal to check it out, you know, and you don't miss any of the plays. That's the key. And, Ralph, it always baffles me. And, you know, hey, it's fine. You know, you like people love big plays. Let's face it. They love the 5% plays. Those plays are $30 by themselves. It baffles me when a guy like, you know, if you're having a great, you know, college basketball season, but there's a night you don't have a 5%. Let's face it. Those are rare. You don't have them every night. But yet you're hitting 60%. Somebody wants to jump and buy a 5% play from somebody that maybe is only hitting 50% on the season, but they got a 5% play instead of riding a hot capper. Well, when you got all access, you're going to ride that hot capper. You're going to ride all of those 3% plays and 4% plays that add up to profit. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, there's certainly some fallacies, and, you know, number one is that. I mean, I have very few 5% plays. I haven't had one yet in college basketball, but, you know, still 20-some plays in. College football, I've only had 1 or 2 all year, and we're 100 plays in. So, you know, to me, I don't know, people handicap differently, but to me it's money management. A 3% play is 3 units, a 4% play is 4 units, a 5% play is 5 units. So even if you have that 5% play, it's only 20% stronger than that 4% play. So 7 plays on the day, 10 times the amount of people will buy that one play for $30 instead of buying a 3-day all-access for $39, and you're getting $59, excuse me, and you're getting how many plays in that stretch. Yeah. So, again, these are quality handicappers at WagerTalk that do their work, that put out products that should extend extend and give you a better percentage to win because of the amount of plays they're using. So people love the 5% plays. I think that's from other services that have games of the year every day on the card. You know, every week there's 17 games. They
have max plays every day.
So again, people are tuning into the wrong thing in my mind.
Agree with you 100%, Ralph. And here's the angle that I was teasing about that didn't make sense. Thanksgiving's coming up Thursday, obviously, next week, and you've got 3 NFL games. So that means there's 6 NFL teams that are in play Sunday and going to come back on a short week and play on Thursday. General thinking, if I asked you, Ralph, what do you think teams do the week before the Thanksgiving game? Because that is a big deal. Let's face it. You're playing on a national holiday. Everybody's off, work. You're going to be a standalone game because they space the games up.
Standalone games, yep.
They space them out so you don't have to compete.
They do space them out where you got time in between.
Yeah, I know from the first game to the second game, I have time for the first game to end and make a turkey sandwich.
Yeah, how did I know that was coming up?
Come on, Ralph. We got to do it. But what do you think? Teams, is it a look ahead? Or do they play well on that Sunday before Thanksgiving?
I would think that the teams that traditionally play, Dallas and Detroit, would be thinking about that game ahead because they're at home. And in Dallas and Detroit, I mean, the Thanksgiving holiday takes on an entire different dynamic. I would think, excuse me, they would be poor. Then I also think, well, hey, if you also have to...
Ralph's got a turkey leg that he's trying to eat while we're doing the show. I told him to not bring the turkey in yet.
I really apologize.
No problem.
And then I look at the other teams and I think, well, hey, you also know you have a short week. You have to travel. You're not home with your families. That's probably a negative as well. So overall, I would guess that it's a negative.
Well, to my surprise, and I'm going to give credit for this stat. This is not a stat I pulled out. This came to me from Sports Insights. Unlike some of the other shows where guys pull things out and they make it their own,
give credit where credit is due. We all analyze information. We all get information from other places. Be honest where it is. It makes you a better person, and you give credit to the right people.
Yeah. So what I hear you're saying is we should give credit to where
they deserve it. They gave us the stat. Absolutely.
I wonder who does that. Okay. Anyways, this stat came from Sports Insights. Since 2015, NFL teams are an impressive 14-4 straight up and 15-2-1 against the spread the week before suiting up for Turkey Day. So those teams that play on Sunday and come right back and play on Thanksgiving Day are a go with rather than a go against. And
we talked about it. I mean, how many times, Marco, on the show that you hear something and it's wrong. I mean, people say something, teams off a bye do this, or teams that are on second aways against second homes. We've proven on the show on Handicapper's Corner that unless you have the actual facts, do not listen to those people that are saying those things, because more often than not, they're wrong.
Urban myths. They sound good for talk radio, but do the research, people. Do the research. That's what we're here to help you with. Ralph, you've got some angles that you want to share with us. Let you go ahead and pick one.
I do. I have an NFL system, and again, if you're new to the betting industry, an angle is this. An angle is something that occurs to one team that you're pulling a specific situation out, and you're giving that record. A system means it doesn't matter which team you're using. So it's anyone that fits that mold. And to me, a system play is 3, 4, or 5 times stronger than an angle, because it doesn't matter what team it is. It probably is very logical. Systems work because of logic. And this is one of those plays that I want to bring up. This is since 2005, Marco, and it's only relevant after Week 9. Well, what happens after Week 9? Teams are beat up. Some teams are playing well. Some teams are playing poorly. And road teams are an incredible 45-15 against the spread. That's 75% when the line is between 3.5. So that means you could be a 3.5-point favorite to a 3.5-point dog. Or you're playing a team that's very close to your level of competition. It means, again, you're a small favorite or small dog. Well, those teams, after playing back-to-back or 2 straight road games with no turnovers, 45 and 15, 75%. So simply this, you're on the road. The last 2 weeks, you haven't had any turnovers. You're playing well. Your quarterback is in sync with receivers. Your running backs aren't making silly mistakes. You're playing a like foe. Again, a 75% angle in the NFL is something you want to write down and follow each week if you find any of those situations.
Yeah, Ralph, I'm looking at the sheet that you sent me with some of these angles, and there's one that stuck out to me, and I'll tell you why it stuck out to me, because I used to do this years ago with the Pittsburgh Steelers too. The week after you play Seattle, teams don't do well. And this was an angle that used to be with the Steelers as well.
And Baltimore as well for some time. When you have those physical defensive teams that get beat up. Now, Seattle's maybe a little different. The Legion of Doom is gone. They're playing a little better. But, again, it's something to think about when you're playing. So go ahead, Marco.
And the reason why I said I used to look at it with the Steelers were getting flagged so many times when they started making the defensive changes of how you hit and everything else. Polamalu for the Steelers. He was, if you ever listen to him talk, he has the most soft-spoken, nice person, religious guy, calm, cool demeanor, and then you put him on a football field and he was an absolute maniac. But the Steelers would get penalties because they were hitting to her. So they kind of let up because of the changes on the rules, and I think you're going to see some of that. But Seattle, it is one of those ones. And then whenever it's coming in this week with the Rams, it's something to be considered, because whenever it is one of those physical teams and then it's a defensive team that's physical and it's a division game, Ralph, it becomes even more intense. Your biggest games of the year are your division games, your rivals. And obviously Seattle and the Rams are a rivalry, and they're coming off that game last week. So that's something to consider in that angle. If you look at it, this is a 39% angle. So if you go against it, 60.9% winner. Go against teams that played Seattle the week before, 50 and 78, 5 pushes in there, and that's a lot of games. It's not a small sample size, so that would negate taking the Rams this week on Monday night.
Couple angles that we'll look at, totals angles, and I'm going to throw out one for your Steelers, Marco, and I actually used this earlier this year when the Steelers were playing Baltimore, and the Steelers are 0-19 over-under. 0-19 is a pretty strong angle. If their opponents average 35-plus more passes per game, and Pittsburgh is a favorite or a small dog. So Pittsburgh is the better team or playing a team very similar to them. They're a favorite or a dog up to 4, and they're playing a team that passes the ball often. Well, Pittsburgh's one of those teams that may give up a lot of yards but doesn't give up in the red zone, and they shorten the field, and they just play well in that defense against passing teams. Again, that situation, 0-19 against the spread, over-under.
Yeah, to go to the Steelers, throw in, it's a big revenge game for them. They were embarrassed giving up the 45 points in that playoff game last year. So the defense is going to come to play. And you know what? I'm curious to see what the Steelers, we didn't talk about this game because I'm up in the air on what we're going to see from the Steelers. The saga is officially over,
Hey, there was a rummage sale on his clothes, right? The players were all grabbing those pieces of Le'Veon Bell. See you the F later, buddy. We're taking your clothes and your tennis shoes, and anything that left in your locker no longer belongs to you.
The Steelers won the Nobel Prize. Nobel.
Oh, you had to hear that somewhere because you didn't make that up yourself.
No, I didn't. No, I got to give credit. We talked about giving credit. LB Oxenreiter, one of the longtime sports reporters in Pittsburgh, and I think he was on Channel 4 WTAE back in Pittsburgh when I was back there. He tweeted that one out. They won the Nobel Prize. So that's pretty good. It's all right. That's it for Handicapper's Corner, guys. I hope you enjoy these angles. And, we say that you never should do anything blindly. But like Ralph said, when you get these things that are league-wide, this is over a period of time, and it's a definitely definitely an angle that means something that you should look at. And if you don't have an opinion on the game, solid opinion, but yet there's a strong angle, that could be enough to get you to the window.
Marco, I just want to leave with one more college angle because the college football season's winding down.
Okay.
And our listeners can get 2 weeks of information in this. And this is just when you're playing a team that has a horrible rush defense. If the only situation this doesn't work in is if you have a home dog. So if you have an away favorite, an away dog, or a home favorite that has allowed 6.5 yards per carry or more in back-to-back games, if you're a stat follower in college football, that means you gave up 300-plus yards in under 50 carries. Well, those teams are 34%. I mean, and it makes total sense. It's that simple. You're just not a home dog, and you gave up 6.5 yards per carry. You fade you. That's a 67% play against. We will mention the 3 teams that you're supposed to fade this week in that system. It's Duke, UConn, and Hawaii.
Good stuff, Ralph. And the reason he was able to get that one out is he did finish that turkey leg, so he was able to give you that one more stat. So good. I'm glad you eat quick there, Ralph. Give them one more stat as we head out to break. And I want to thank you for looking these up. I know, I give this to you every week, and you're amazing. And to give you a plug, listen to the Las Vegas Sports Line show in Vegas daily. We do it from 2 to 3. Ralph's on Thursdays each week on the show, but he actually is on the show every week, every day in spirit, because you are the guy that brings out those Joe's Angles of the Day, one of our sponsors, and that has just been on a tremendous run. Where's it at now? Do you have it off the top of your head?
Well, the yesterday's and today's plays weren't valid yet, so it's 2-0 this week. It's 10-2 the last 2+ weeks. And I believe it's 24-6 the last 4+ weeks.
I know it was like 21-6 when I was on Monday.
Betting the Eagles. They won Monday and Tuesday. So it could be a hockey, could be an NBA. Obviously, college football winding down. We're going to start adding some college basketball angles. So, again, you never want to base a play on an angle. But if it helps you make that final leap over if you're going to use it or not, or more importantly, if it takes you off a game that you might have liked, but the angle's strong enough, it's going to save you money, saving you the percent juice that you're paying. But again, angles are to be used as part of your handicapping repertoire, not basing a play solely on that angle.
Good stuff, Ralph. All right, we're going to step out for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take the deep look at college football up next here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. It's time for the college football previews, and we are going to get to those in one moment. Quick note, want to remind you to head over to uwager.eu, and you can get on board with a signing bonus. Use promo code WT50, that's WT50, and they will put a 50% sign-up bonus for new clients. This is exclusive to WagerTalk listeners. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. And there's a big one, Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
It's not a baseball game. It's a football game, Dave.
That's all right. There's still room for a Yankees suck chant somewhere there.
You've got Notre Dame and Syracuse, obviously Syracuse being a New York team, but there's going to be a ton of Notre Dame fans. Notre Dame fans travel everywhere, especially cities like this. How do you see this one with the Cuse and the Irish?
I'm going to steal this from our radio show today. The Las Vegas Sports Line, one of our guests was Paul Stone today, who's a terrific college football handicapper. And I would agree with him on this. He said that Syracuse, in his mind, is one of the, if not the most overrated team in the country. And I agree, because they're a good football team, but there's no way they're the 12th best team in the country. That's absurd. Now, the betting line, I think, is more realistic than their ranking. Notre Dame's a good-sized favorite in this football game, which indicates that there is a pretty good gap, this being a neutral field, there is a pretty good gap between Notre Dame and the reality of Syracuse. I don't think it's a good matchup for Syracuse, though. Notre Dame has a defense that at least can slow down the Orange offense to some extent. Syracuse is, they're gonna get some points, but they're not going to get a ton of points, I don't think, against Notre Dame. The flip side is the Syracuse defense can get exposed here. Great move by Brian Kelly. Look, he could have played Book last week, but he just wasn't going to take any chances. Give him a week off, let him be rested and ready for this game, and back to close to 100%. I think Book's going to have a big day. I think the Irish are going to have a big day, and I would look at the Notre Dame side here.
You know, a shout-out to Syracuse's AD. He has their basketball team playing at Madison Square Garden Thursday and Friday, and he has Syracuse playing in New York City as well for the Yankees.
Good work.
I mean, you're going to have a ton of Cuse fans there doing both events. So, I mean, what a schedule to set up. Now, the reason Syracuse is 8-2 straight up NATS, and they lost only 2 games this year, Clemson by 4, Pittsburgh by 7 on the road. So they're 11 points away from being perfect. But when you look at their turnover log, they've been even in 2 games, and they're plus turnovers in 8 games. Not one game this year have they lost a turnover battle. And that only happens maybe one team a year, and maybe not even that a team goes through a season and is 0 or positive in the turnover battle in every game. And you have to expect that's going to happen. Now, to me, I didn't check the weather yet on this game. There was an early forecast coming in where there was going to be some winds, and then they weren't sure that was going to happen. But if there's wind in this game, Syracuse cannot run the ball. Notre Dame dominates the ball. If it's going to be a windless game where the weather is fine, where weather's not a factor, I think Syracuse can keep it close. It's not a game I'm going to play either way. But if the winds are a negative factor, I would lean with the Cuse.
Or you would lean with Notre Dame, you mean?
I would, if the winds were not a factor, I would leave.
Okay.
If the winds are a factor, there's no question. Okay. Notre Dame might be a play for me if the winds were in that 15 to 20 mile an hour range.
All right, the couple things here I'm going to point out, and I can't disagree with anything you guys are saying. One thing I will disagree with, you said Syracuse can't
First of all, wait a minute. You said there's nothing I disagree with you guys, and then you say the first thing I disagree with you. So which is it, Marco?
Okay, I agree with a lot of the stuff Dave said, okay? I have a problem with you saying Syracuse can't run the football. They need the balance. They need both. But this is a 200-club team, and I love watching 200-club offenses because they run and pass for 200 yards. So it's tougher for defenses to come up with game plans because what do you take away? But they each, feed off of each other. So I would agree if they became one-dimensional, it would be a problem.
May I rebut?
Okay.
Syracuse is not a traditional 200-200 team because they pass the ball 4 times, get the defense to start playing back in a zone, and then hand off a draw and the guy rushes for 15 yards. If it's 0-0 and they have to rush at the beginning of the game, I don't think they can do it. So some teams pass to set up the run. That's Syracuse. And if the weather's a factor where they can't do that, that's where I have the issue.
All right. The other part here is Syracuse is not going to be intimidated by Notre Dame because they went into Clemson, which is a much better team than Notre Dame. Yeah. And they played them toe-to-toe. And then you talk about the only 2 losses they had this year. They came back-to-back weeks. I think they lost the Pitt game because they lost the Clemson game twice because they were right there. They had Clemson on the ropes, and Clemson was able to escape in that game. And then you had
a fourth-quarter lead in the Clemson game.
Right. Yeah. And then you had to go back and play Pitt, who – was flying under the radar at the time. I mean, nobody thought this Pitt team was going to be what they are, and they got beat there, but they only got beat by 7, and they scored a lot of points.
And against Pitt, they had a 31-27 lead into the fourth quarter. So both of those games,
that looked like the Syracuse Pitt looked like it almost looked from the beginning like it was going to be a last team with the ball wins.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm going to point out, and I realize if you're looking at the rankings, they're not going to look past Syracuse. 100%.
No,
they're the number 12.
This is their toughest game left because at this point USC is just not that tough a looking game.
But I'm going to play old school. If you're looking at the schedule and your 3 remaining games and all you got to do is win out and you're going to be playing in the playoff, you look at Florida State, name-wise is still big, but performance-wise they're bad. Then you have Syracuse. Then you have USC, another situation like Florida State. Name-wise, that's a big, big rivalry for USC and Notre Dame, but USC is not the team that they are. I just think that when you look at that schedule, this is the flat spot between the three games, and the fact that Book was out last week, I think was a blessing for Notre Dame because it got them to be focused because the good quarterback was not on the field, right. The injured player theory. Now that he's back, I just see them, Brian Kelly, if this game gets tight, I just see him clinching up and playing not to lose. And you don't want to do that laying double digits. And this Syracuse team can score at any time. I've got to lean to Syracuse. I think if the weather's not a problem, I think both teams are going to score a lot of points in this game as well. Moving on to the next game. Boys, this is an exciting game. Guys, you've got different angles here. Cincinnati comes in here with one loss. Central Florida, undefeated, longest winning streak in the country at 22. I'll start with you, Ralph. This is one of those ones. Game day's at Central Florida this week,
yep.
Right? We saw earlier this year the effect that had in the Washington State game.
Saw it again last weweek. I mean, look, yeah. Boston College was on fire last week. They just couldn't do anything against Clemson offensively because the quarterback gets hurt early, and Dylan was hurt anyway in the football game. But they were on fire early in that game, and Clemson knew they had a battle in their hands, so should be more of the same here.
The difference in this one is Washington State, was the team that people didn't believe in yet. Boston College obviously was playing, David and Goliath. Here, it's Central Florida that's got the target on their back because they're the team with the nation's longest winning streak. But they also, in addition to that target on their back, they got one hell of a chip on their shoulders because this team can't get the respect because of the conference they play, the out-of-conference schedule they play. Everybody says you haven't beaten anybody. Well, you know what? They played a tougher schedule than Cincinnati did this year because Cincinnati caught a break. They didn't have to play Memphis. They dodged the bullet of Memphis in this conference, which is the other good team in this conference. And Central Florida went on the road. They didn't cover that game, but they did pull that game out and beat Memphis in Memphis. I'm leaning to Central Florida. You guys talk me out of it.
Okay.
I'm leaning to Central Florida.
Uh-oh.
So I'm not going to talk you out of it. I look at Cincinnati and, Dave talked about Syracuse being a fake or a misranked team. Not fake, but just misranked.
They're not the 12th best team in the country.
Cincinnati is a ranked team, and Cincinnati shouldn't be a ranked team. You look at Cincinnati and you say, oh, my God, their defense is only allowing 279 yards per game. They have one of the best defenses in the country. Cincinnati is allowing 279 yards per game because they've played one offense ranked in the top 35 this entire league. Their schedule's been horrendous. They play one of the weakest schedules all year long. I think they get exposed. I'd lean with UCF, and I actually like the over in this game. I think UCF can move the ball on Cincinnati, and I think Cincinnati can move the ball on UCF. The total's high, and you're surprised because Cincinnati's defense. But in this matchup, I lean with the over.
Dave, you going to make it unanimous?
No.
No? Okay.
No. I think this is going to be a hell of a game. And I'm going to go again to the conference power ratings. And I've talked about this where I maintain two sets of power ratings. One is a full season overall. The other is conference only. And in conference, I actually have Cincinnati with a higher power rating than Central Florida. I have the whole world with a higher power rating than South Florida. But Central Florida, they're a terrific football team and a great program, and Mackenzie Milton is an absolute dynamo at quarterback. But Cincinnati can play, and they have the offensive capabilities in terms of the style of play that they utilize to keep the Central Florida offense off the field more than it would like to be. I think this is going to be an absolute war, back and forth, up and down the field. I think that Central Florida still has the chip on their shoulder, but Cincinnati also has a bit of a chip on their shoulder because nobody's paid any attention to them all season, and they've only got the one loss. And that was to a pretty good football team, and they shouldn't have lost it. They were phenomenally. I had the win in this game, the Temple-Cincinnati game. I won it, and I know I was really lucky. I mean, I pulled that one out of my butt. Okay, that I should not have won that football game, and I did. So this Cincinnati team is going to go in there feeling that they're every bit as good as Central Florida. They won't be at all intimidated, and I think you're going to get a terrific football game here. It's not on my card, because the 7, I want more than 7, and it's just not there. But I would lean to the Bearcats plus the points in this game.
The only thing I'll say about your with Cincinnati, their signature win was the first game of the season, UCLA, and that's before UCLA.
I don't care about that. UCLA stinks.
Well, but name-wise, it is for them. They went to the West Coast.
Their best win is Tulane.
I'll use to rebuttal. What's Central Florida's signature win? They don't have one.
I'd have to pull.
Who have they played?
Pittsburgh
in Memphis.
That's a signature win
in Memphis
on
the road.
We have different opinions on Memphis. I don't think Memphis is. I think Memphis is way down from last year.
Pittsburgh's going to the ACC title game.
Yeah, I know. They're a nice team, but but they're not.
Well, again,
they're in the weaker division.
Yeah, they're in the much weaker division.
The ACC now used
Clemson
to be about
and everybody
even
else.
with the AAC. I'm sorry, the American Conference used to be equal with Mountain West. Well, now it's under the Mountain West. Now it's closer to the MAC or CUSA.
Yeah, I know it.
The way it's playing.
It's weird.
We're talking about schedules so bad that these teams have just played such a low schedule that you can't look at the stats and compare them to other teams.
It looks like either Houston, which is a flawed team, SMU, or Tulane is going to be in the AAC championship game. What?
Yeah.
I mean, no, the AAC, and by the way, it's a bad basketball
So are you
league.
saying more people are going to watch the MAC championship game than the
Probably
AAC?
be more fun. And it's bad in basketball this year too. So that's a league that has really fallen to mid-major status.
Yeah, no question. Marco, let's look to a Big Ten game, and we have the stalwart Michigan State that's, has the 4 losses and struggling as they go down the stretch, and a Nebraska team that, Scott Frost told us all he was going to be a much better team, and now he's cashed 3 of his last 4 games, winning those. I think there's a clear agreement that Nebraska's playing better football right now than Michigan State, but when these two match up, what do you make of it?
Well, I do that Nebraska radio show every week, and so obviously we're breaking them down. And I said today, I don't know how Michigan State gets themselves up for this game.
Oh, boy, I agree with you.
Because what do you have to play for? Yeah. You're a 6-win team. You're already bowl eligible. Oh, what bowl are you going to get? You had aspirations much higher than just going to a middle of the
going to the who gives a crap bowl.
So no motivation there. They played their guts out for 3 quarters last week and then imploded. That is the most misleading score last week, the Ohio State 20-point win. That was nothing.
They got murdered.
Yeah.
The punter was the best player on the field, no question. Yeah. The player of the week for Ohio State.
They can't throw.
Yeah. And that's why we liked Ohio State last week, because you couldn't expose their weakness.
Well, guess what? I mean, I don't. Nebraska's playing at a much higher level than they were early in the season, and they had some good losses early in the season where they just didn't know how to win. Now they're figuring it out. No, I think we're going to be on the same side here.
Martinez, this kid is the real deal. He got hurt early in the season, missed some games, and then let's remember, this is a guy that came in, Scott Frost. He had all of the he had the players from the old coaching regime. They're getting his system right now. They haven't figured the defense out yet.
Martinez was the only freshman to play, so he brought in these new guys, but he played all his old guys in the system.
He's going to have to recruit defense. Because the defense is not good, but the offense is starting to really figure it out.
The offense has been tremendous. They've covered 5 in a row, Ralph. I think you said 4-1. They've actually covered 5 in a row.
3-1 straight up.
One of those was whatever it was.
Bethune-Cookman, But this is a spot where I just think they're going to score points. I don't see Michigan State being able to trade points. That's what you need to do to beat Nebraska.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with the motivation.
Yeah.
It's just, I know Nebraska's not going to a bowl, but they're playing every game now as though it's a part of the 2019 season. They're already playing for next season. I like that in a team playing down, these games down the stretch. So we're very much in agreement on this one, Ralph.
You know what? I'm just going to finish it and just add 1 point. Completely agree. No need to talk about something that we all agree on. Nebraska, in their first 6 games, they were even in turnovers against Wisconsin. They were minus turnovers in those other 5 games, being -7. In their last 4 games, even turnovers in 1, plus in every other game. So now they're +6 turnovers the last 4 games after being -7 the first ones. They were never plus turnovers in any of those first 7 games. They haven't been minus the first 4. Martinez is not making mistakes now. They know how to play. They know how to win.
I want to lead with this next game because between Will Bernanke on this podcast and Jason Simbal earlier today, both CG Sportsbooks, it looks like Oklahoma State, or I should say West Virginia, is going to be the biggest liability on the College Board for the sportsbooks this weekend. They are going to need Oklahoma State in this game. I don't think they're going to get them.
This is a tough game. The way I look at it, you've got two schools of thought. You could go with, West Virginia. Are they going to tighten up? Because they got something to play for. And I'm going to be devil's advocate with you two guys. If West Virginia wins this game, then you have the showdown with Oklahoma.
Right.
If the same team wins, because if West Virginia wins here, we're going to see Oklahoma, West Virginia 1 and 2. They're going to play the final week of the season, and then we're going to see them in the championship.
Like Fresno and Boise last year.
Right. Now, in this instance, though, for the Big 12, they have to have the same winner in both games to have any shot of somebody sneaking in, and I still don't think they can sneak into the top four. They'll need a ton of help because there's going to be Michigan sitting there. There's going to be Georgia.
They need Ohio State. They need Georgia Tech, and they need South Carolina to win.
And they can't split these two games because if West Virginia and Oklahoma split, they're done. So does West Virginia tighten up because they have so much on the line? But the flip side to that is Oklahoma State, what do they have left after last week?
What a tough loss. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, this is – and you've got a coach that's been there a long time, but there's some rumblings coming out of Stillwater that, his seats, might be a little warm.
They should be careful what they wish for. Yeah. Okay, they're a good program under Gundy, and if they're thinking Oklahoma State – if those fans down there are thinking Oklahoma State's supposed to contend for a national title – stop being ridiculous. Okay, he's got them to a level where they're a good program every year. But boy, is this West Virginia team hot right now. And this is interesting stuff. Again, we'll refer back to an early conversation today that we had with Paul Stone, and I asked him about, are these top-rated teams overvalued? And he did a breakdown of the spread records of like the first 8 teams in the rankings. It's fantastic. So even though there might not be any value in terms of the number, it doesn't matter. You can't stop these expresses. They keep on covering the spreads. And I think West Virginia kind of falls in that category right now, Ralph.
Yeah, you talk about teams being hot, and West Virginia is. And, the thing that concerns me is you look at West Virginia, well, their last game against Texas went down the wire. They went for the 2 points, and they won that. But they also got manhandled against Iowa State. I guess the difference in that game is Iowa State's probably the only one that can play defense in the conference. And Iowa State has
turned out to be a lot better than anybody thought.
They're a different team.
When they switched quarterbacks, it was the change of that team for sure.
Yeah, they went to the freshmen. And, I've gone back in this fourth game, and this is one of the games where I really don't have an opinion on. But, Dave, just to jump back to your record, talking with Paul Stone on the Las Vegas Sports Line, the top 6 teams in the conference playoff rankings right now, the last 3 weeks, they were 13-4-1 against the spread.
Style points, baby.
The last 5 weeks, they were 21-8-1 against the spread. So thanks to Paul Stone for those numbers.
And the thing is, what it comes down to is don't step in front of a train.
Yeah. The only thing that you can make a case for Oklahoma State is they've got 2 games left. They're sitting at 5-5. They either have to win this one this week or at TCU next week to be bowl eligible. I mean,
I understand the frustration if they go 5-7 and miss a bowl, but
losing 4 out of 5 games down the stretch straight up is just going to be draining on any team.
Yeah, but Gundy's a good coach. Okay.
The one thing that if this is tight late, we know that Will Gear, he's already shown it. This guy's got ice water in his veins. This guy just does not.
His stock is going way up.
Yeah.
Marco and I talked about this. Watching him against Texas.
Yeah.
There's 37 seconds on the clock, and the guy looks like he's laying out at the beach. He's so calm. I'm screaming. Marco's screaming at the TVs. And this guy just goes up there, no big deal, makes the plays. And when you're that calm, that means, number 1, you can win close games, and number 2, you can go on the road like he did at Texas and win those games.
Well, and also, I guess I'll throw this in. Because we do know there are some rumblings of discontent in Stillwater, is the Oklahoma State home field advantage maybe reduced by a point or 2 because of the fact that it seems like the fans are a little down on the program right now. Yeah. That can hurt your home field.
I didn't see how many people were there last, but yeah.
Let's just say the enthusiasm level isn't what it's been.
Completely agree.
Here's the point, too. If they fall behind early, Oklahoma State could quit. They, we know West Virginia has the capability of putting up 14 in a blink of an eye. It's
the downside of this, though, if it sounds like we're recommending West Virginia, it won't be on my card. And part of the reason is the number. I mean, I'm a stickler for value in terms of not necessarily in terms of my power ratings, but in terms of where the line was and where it is now. I'm not taking 2 points, the worst of it, on purpose. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this line has gone up a couple of points. It might get to 7. Well, I'm not going to lay that when I could have laid 4. I mean, it's just I know I've said this a million times, but I'll keep on hammering it home. Those are the games you pass. Because you're just not getting a right price.
Dog twice in 3 years, and they're 2-0. So again, you're going into a very good program. You're going into a program that knows how to win games with a quality coach, and laying a touchdown's a different story.
All right, great segment, guys. We're going to take a quick break, guys. When we come back, let's see if we can duplicate it in the NFL. We got a couple good games this week. We'll have that next on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. We're going to head to the NFL, and guys, we got some interesting games. Going to start with one, Denver and the L.A. Chargers. Note I said L.A. I didn't say San Diego.
Nice.
How about that?
It's probably because you wrote out on the sheet, L.A. Chargers.
Screw you, Dave.
All the other games. But that's what it takes. Look, I make my own mistakes. I get first names wrong all the time. I did it with I was doing a radio show today, and I'm talking about Purdy. From Iowa State, whose name is Brock, and I called him Matt Purdy. I don't know why. And that's a show in Iowa. It's like, how about talk about making yourself look stupid?
Oh, that was on Iowa? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. You win the style points for that one.
I corrected myself, but I was like, come on.
But, guys, I've been talking about this Charger team flying under the radar and what they've done, going back to last year. They're now 17-4 the last 21 games with the losses last year. 2 losses down the stretch, 10-2, New England and KC. Their only 2 losses this year, Rams and KC. So I've built them up. And now all of a sudden, everybody's putting that same stat out of what they're doing and talking about, here's the sexy sleeper that nobody's talking about. You know what happens when everybody jumps on the bandwagon?
Oh, sure.
So now what I did is I went back and I looked at the wins this year on San Diego because I talked about they only have 4 losses and they were against good teams. But look at who they beat this year. San Diego hasn't. Oh, I did it. All right, I've got to.
He buys a round of beers.
Oh, I did it. I just can't help
Hopefully we'll get another round of beers soon.
Look who the Chargers have beaten. They're not playing the good team.
They beat Buffalo and San Fran and Oakland
and
Cleveland.
And they
Oakland twice. They got the benefit of playing Oakland twice.
And Tennessee was nice enough to try a 2-point conversion when they should have tried for the overtime.
The only 2 teams that they beat during this winning streak that had a winning record was Tennessee, as you said, should not have won the game.
They got played badly in that game.
Okay, and then they beat Seattle.
That was a good win.
That was a good win. And Seattle's a borderline winning team.
I watched that game.
Seattle,
they played well in that game. Okay, and they still went into that that noisy place in Seattle, and they got that was a good win. Look, they're a good football team. Okay.
And they don't have their best defensive player yet.
No, I know.
And when he gets back, they're going to be a force.
The problem is they're playing their first game at home in 5 games.
That
could be a detriment.
He was cleared to practice this week, and I want to see if he.
Bosa is
on
the field?
So I don't know.
He's practicing.
We'll get the Friday update on the injuries, and we'll see what happens.
Gotcha.
But Denver, perfect situation for them. We always talk about, a team goes into the bye on a bad note. When there's nobody that could go into the bye worse than the Denver Broncos. This team has been a train wreck this year. And for Vance Joseph, I got to think
he's done.
I got to, he loses this game, it seals his fate. The question is, do they pull the trigger during the season, or do the Broncos wait till the end of the season? And that's
what they should do is, in my opinion,
should have did it during the break.
If the contract's guaranteed.
I think he's staying for the duration. I kind of think that's a mistake. And look, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's a lame duck coach. And when it's a lame duck coach, just get him out of there. okay? Because everybody in the team knows it. So you might as well promote somebody from within to run the team for the rest of the year. I think you get a better effort that way. And that's what worries me about the Broncos here, is that, they kind of look like one of those teams that will come out and they'll play hard early, but if they fall behind, it could be, just a rolling stone gathering no moss going downhill, and they might end up getting boat raced in some of these games, and this could be one of those.
Ralph?
It's a game where I'm actually looking at the under. I see what Denver does, Keenum with his 11-10 ratio. Right now you look at the Chargers and they're saying, okay, we just played 4 games away from home. So now we have Denver and Arizona at home, and then we go to Pittsburgh. And so we have 2 weeks to work on things. Let's work on those things that we need to work out. You're going to beat these 2 teams. At least you're very fairly confident you're going to beat these 2 teams. So this is the week for me to say, let's make sure Gordon's healthy. Let's let Eckler run the ball some more, or Allen run the ball some more, or try some things to show some people some things we might do later on in the year. So, I think they have a 2-week respite here playing these 2 foes, where it wouldn't surprise me if they go semi-vanilla or try new things on offense. And, with the defense, they're allowing 357 yards per game, but they've had good performances. They haven't had an outlier performance. Their only horrible performance was at the Rams. They gave up 500-plus yards, but a lot of people do that. So if you're playing the Rams on the road and you give up 500 yards, again, that's the norm. So in this game, I'm leaning with the under.
All right, I lean to Denver plus the points here, as you saw by my opening on it. This is the thing for the Chargers coming home. They've been on the road for so long. They're coming home to a place that, there's just no home field advantage here. And you're laying a full touchdown with a team that, although they're winning in 6 of their last 7 games, they've only cracked the 30-point mark once. A team scores in the 20s, and you're laying a full touchdown. That doesn't leave a lot of room for error defensively. And given the fact that Denver's had 2 weeks to prepare a game plan, if you're ever going to see anything from Denver, it's this game here. So it's Denver for me on this one.
One just note, when you're looking at the Charger stats, you do need to be cognizant that of their 9 games, 3 were at home and 6 were away from home. That's a pretty big gap after 9 weeks to have played 3 extra games away from home.
And I'm not saying this to be funny. 3 were neutral field and 6 were on the road.
Right, the KC game had more KC fans in the opener. And then they played San Fran and Oakland, which didn't have crowds anyway.
You're going to have this. I don't know about this game because the Broncos, they're not playing real well, so they might not get the traveling audience. But you got 2 games in L.A. this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. Deciding which one you're going to, you're not going to.
Well, that and the Chiefs, we know that Chiefs fans travel extremely well. You know what's going to be on Monday night.
Yep.
There's probably going to be as many Chiefs fans there, maybe more than the Rams fans.
Like it was that way with the Green Bay game.
Yep.
Next one here, guys, we've got Houston and Washington. And I don't think there was anybody in this room that wasn't on Tampa Bay last week.
I wasn't.
You didn't have Tampa?
I was not involved.
Okay.
I only played 1 game last week, which was New Orleans.
I had Tampa Bay. You had Tampa Bay, Ralph, didn't you, or no?
I had an opinion, but no, I wasn't.
That was unbelievable. 500 yards of offense, roughly, and they get 3 points.
Yeah, well, in
29 first downs.
Unbelievable.
They had 4 turnovers, and the thing about turnovers, all of their turnovers occurred when they were going to score.
Yeah. Yep.
They were down there just throwing pick after pick, and it just unbelievable. Washington didn't do anything but got 16 points and win the game 16-3. Washington, I feel, is the worst 6-3 first place team I have ever seen in recent years.
So this is what I tweeted out last week, and I guess it was a good tweet because it got a lot of responses. I said the Redskins are now 6-3, but their power rating remains somewhere between LOL and GTFOH. Okay.
Yeah. And everybody that commented on that was somebody that had Tampa Bay last week.
Here's the other thing, is that Josh Norman.
I don't know what GTFOH is.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, excuse my ignorance.
Okay. So anyway, after the game last week, Josh Norman goes off on the Redskins fans. He said, they boo everything we do. They don't support us at all. I wish we played all our games on the road. So you know what's going to happen here? If they fall back early, the fans are going to start booing again because all he did with that was infuriate the fans even more. I don't know if there's a home field advantage here. And I really don't. And I was trying to figure it into my numbers because I'll have different home field advantages for each team. And, like for Kansas City, I've got like a 5 for their home field because their fans are insane. Right. Green Bay's got a big home field. But what do you do in Washington? Do you give them 1? Yeah. It's not 3 at this point because they're better on the road than they are at home. And I think Norman kind of explained why, because I don't think that was an exclusive comment, and I think it probably reflects the conversation in the locker room, which is that this team is probably not all that enthused about playing before fans who might not really care about them. And they're playing a hot football team here.
Dave, your stats to back them up. At home, Washington getting outscored 22-19. On the road, they have a 20-16 edge. At home, basically the yards are the same, but I don't know if any other team at home that has a winning record is minus yards per game at home. They're minus 7 yards per game at home.
They're kind of the Pythagorean.
As a first-place team.
In baseball, we do a lot of the Pythagorean stuff, where what a team's record should be as opposed to what it is. And I've never done it for the NFL, but I suspect that if I did it for the Redskins, their record should be more like 3-6.
Well, if you're minus 15 yards per game, that means you're a 500 team.
Basically.
Period. That's clearly. So that's what their numbers say.
The only thing stupider than a player giving the opposing team bulletin board material is the player giving your fans bulletin board material to go ahead.
But he's kind of right, because I was watching the game a couple weeks ago, and they're booing the crap out of it.
So are we going to see DeAndre Hopkins doing Lambeau Leap in Washington?
It is weird because
Jordan Reed's not going to do it.
I understand the team hasn't exactly been a dynamic squad, but they're in first place. How are you booing them at home?
In all the injuries, I can't back Washington, but as we did in the earlier segment when we did Handicapper's Corner, Ralph, we talked about this angle, and this is an angle that, in theory, you think it would be the opposite. Washington's playing the Sunday before Thanksgiving Day. You would think that teams that's a distraction, knowing that you're going to be playing, holiday, national TV, you'll be the only game in that time slot, everybody watching you. So you would think it would be a negative. But actually, and I'm going to thank the people at Sports Insights for this stat, since 2015, teams were 14-4 straight up, 15-2-1 against the spread when they were suiting up on Sunday before Thanksgiving, playing on Thanksgiving. Okay. In your head, that's one of those ones you would think the total opposite. So that would apply to Washington here.
And I'll tell you why I don't think the total opposite. I think for a lot of the teams, especially the teams that are traveling, it's just a gigantic pain in the ass. They're not looking forward to that at all. They'd rather be home for the holidays with their families, just like everybody else. So I think it's a
unless you're Dallas or Detroit, where it's a tradition.
Well, then they're at home, and they're at home anyway,
and the whole city lives around you being there. Right, the home team, yes.
But it's been a winning angle. But I can't get to the window on Washington. I don't know that I can actually pull the trigger on Houston. And Houston's coming off bye week as well. They got everything working for them. Washington with the offensive line injuries, tough for me to pull the trigger.
I'm going to, again, throw in another underlean here. I know there was a lot of scoring early in the NFL, but we're going to start seeing some return to normalcy here. And you look at Denver, for their last 5 games, 20 points or less. You look at Washington, each of their last 5 games, 23 points or less, and it's gone down each game since then. So, again, I'm going to toss in another lean towards the under.
All right, Ralph, I'm going to come to you with this one. We got a good one on Sunday night. Actually, all of the primetime games this week, Thursday, Sunday, Monday, this is the best week that we've had for TV games.
This is good stuff. And this is a big game right here.
I'm going to steal something that someone said on videos on Wednesday when we were filming, and we were talking about this game, and someone said stuff about, the Bears were a dog earlier, and they weren't trying to have to, have that bullseye on their back. But now they're a favorite. So they're the team with the bullseye on their back. Was that you that said that, Marco?
Yeah.
No, I think it was Dave that said that.
I said something along those lines.
I'm going to just say
that's the way I feel about
it. Minnesota feels disrespected to be a dog, number one. Minnesota's defense the last 4 weeks. Granted, it was Arizona, the Jets, and Detroit. I completely understand that. But they still allowed 269 yards, 263 yards, 270 yards, 209 yards. You play 4 straight games, you allow 250 yards per game, and you allow 17 first downs per game, I'm going to back that team as a dog. A defensive dog in November, yes.
So this is a game where I have a conflict because I think from a handicapping standpoint, Minnesota's the side. For what I mentioned earlier about the Bears in a pressure situation, this is pressure as a favorite, which is a whole lot different from pressure as a dog. And make no mistake, they'll know that they're favored in the game. You don't have to be a sports bettor to understand whether you're a favorite or an underdog. And I think that favors the Vikings. They've been in more big games as a team. This is a new experience for the Bears, and they're favored. The other side of it is, though, I don't want to go against my projections. And I make the Bears about 5.5 here on my projections. So it's a quick pass for me because I don't like the favorite in terms of the situation, but I don't want to go against the numbers. So we'll see. The Bears have a chance to prove themselves here. I will say this. If the Bears win this game and go to 7-3, they're probably going to win the division, and they'll come out of this game really believing in themselves as a legit team. Don't know if they can do it.
I'm going to throw a couple things in there. For Chicago, having the bullseye on the back, I agree with you there. I thought you were referencing before Central Florida because I said that about Central Florida.
I was stealing Dave's video. Dave opened up with this video, and I was just trying to steal his thunder.
Yeah.
He forgot he said it, though. He's that old that it doesn't matter.
That's the beauty of Dave's so old and senile, you can steal stuff from him and don't feel bad about it because he doesn't know you stole it.
Who are you guys anyway?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Marco paid me to stop busting his chops.
By the way, at least it won't take long for me to get home. We live right across the street from one of those centers for people with questionable memories.
Oh, there you go. That's right. We do.
We do. I'm not lying.
Right,
directly across the street from the studio is a senior citizen assisted living community. Which
in a couple years, we'll be broadcasting.
Soon to be Ralph's home.
Well,
we'll be broadcasting live from there. Me, Dave, and Ralph for the.
All right, Marco, finish up on this game.
You look at this one, guys. Here's the thing. This is a statement game for Chicago. This got flexed in. Okay, so. It got flexed in because Jacksonville got themselves flexed out. Okay,
yeah.
But this is a big game for Chicago.
It's enormous.
It's a scheduling dilemma for them because the NFL made them in the limelight tonight. But they didn't do them any favors. Think about this, Dave. When this game they went from 1:00 start to 8:20. When this game finishes, they're going to have the quickest turnaround ever to come back to Thursday.
So let me ask you: don't I mean? From a betting standpoint, don't you really want Chicago to win this game?
Oh,
because the only game Detroit's going to give a crap about the rest of the way, because that team has mailed it in.
Oh.
They're going to care about Thanksgiving Day at home and all the tradition. And boy, could you catch
revenge.
The Bears in a revenge situation for Detroit with all that motivation that they'll have, and the Bears on a real short turnaround off what would be the biggest.
Be getting what? 6?
I don't think it'd be getting that, but
4.5.
I don't care about the number because it'll be a Detroit money line situation if the Bears win this football game because it would be, I think, the biggest potential letdown we've seen all year in the NFL.
Because, as I said, this is their statement game, their legitimizer, and I love it.
What happens if they lose the game, though?
That's going to be a tough one.
That's a tricky one because they're still going to face a scheduling dilemma.
Right.
But they'd also really need the game going into Detroit.
And then they got to question themselves. They're not what they thought they were if they lose at home to Minnesota.
Well, plus if they lose 2, they lose Minnesota and Detroit, all of a sudden they go from playoff team to not so likely a playoff team.
I'll tell you where I'm at in the game, and I already did it with the Thursday night game and this one. This is going to be one of my teaser plays on Sunday. I'm going to have Minnesota in a lot of teasers because you're looking at a lower total, and you got that plus 2.5 with Minnesota. You tease them up on a 6-point teaser. You're going through all the key numbers of 3, 4, 6, and 7. I just don't. If Chicago wins, I don't see Chicago winning in a rout. And the one thing Chicago's got to do this week better than they haven't done the last 2 weeks, because they're facing a real defense this week. They have not run the football the last 2 weeks at all. They need balance for Trubisky to be successful against a good defense.
They need Trubisky running. When Trubisky's running, they're almost like a quasi-option team.
Yeah.
Because they've got 3 backs, well, including Trubisky, who can really do damage with their legs. I like it when they run, run the football.
Any quarterback that can extend that 3rd and 5 and get a first down is all the difference in the world. It's a backbreaker on the defense.
He's such a threat as a runner.
Marco, Dave, I'm going to steal another line from Dave today on the radio, and Dave said, well, when you got wrestling matches or UFC matches, everything culminates in that one final match, and that's this weekend in football. For only the 3rd time, my database goes back. If you go to WagerTalk, the NFL Matrix goes back to 1989, so 30 years. Only twice in 30 years has there been a total of 60 or higher. Back in 2000, the 49ers played the Rams. I think that was the greatest show on turf.
Yep.
And in the playoffs, the Falcons played the Packers just in January 2017. That total was 60.5, and it went over the total. This game got moved from Mexico City to L.A. Tell us your thoughts on it.
Well, barring the field conditions that they were going to have at Mexico, assuming it would have been good field conditions, I was looking forward to this game in Mexico because I wanted the angle of the fourth quarter in that high altitude. These two defenses were going to be gassed. And, guys, if you've played any sport, doesn't matter if it's basketball or football, it takes more energy to play defense than it does to play offense because everything you're doing on defense is a reaction. You don't know what the offense is doing. They know where they're going, what they're trying to do, and you're trying to react to it. So I wanted to see that, but I'm still looking at the over here. And I know the Sharps – I don't want to say the Sharps. Dave, you said it. We keep calling the numbers guys Sharps all the time. The numbers guys are going to play this under because that's their DNA.
But – now, this is why we love having these conversations with the guys who work behind the counter, because they'll tell you, we got this information today, that at CG, guy they consider to be probably their sharpest over and under player, he bet the over.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one sharp right there, and I don't know who it is, but it's whoever it is, he's very respected better. He took the over, and I agree. Listen. Who's stopping anybody in this game? These are two. I know Cooper Kupp's out, and that's going to hurt the Rams, but they're still a tremendous offensive team with some real question marks on defense, particularly Marcus Peters, who is getting burned on a every game basis, and the Chiefs have got the speed to burn him. The Chiefs' defense isn't any good. Now, these teams are going to go up and down the field all night long. This is going to be a blast to watch, and I do think the game's going over. I think you maybe get 65, 68 points this game. Lean Chiefs. I think they're the better team at this point.
I agree and disagree with you. I agree with you on the total, but I lean to the Rams. Okay. But the total is where I'm at. And here's what I'm talking about. Some people in the last few weeks are saying, oh, Kansas City fixed their defense because they've, held the last 4 opponents to 10, 23, 21, and 14. And you need, if you're playing a total of this size, you need both teams to get there offensively. Unless one scores 50 like the Saints do, they can carry a total by themselves.
I don't think any defense can particularly stop the Rams under today's rules.
They don't. But what I'm going to point out is that 4 games that everybody's saying they fixed the defense, it's a mirage, guys. They faced Cincinnati the week after the Steeler game when Cincinnati was demoralized. They faced Denver, who's in total disarray. They faced the Browns, who offense has been not good. They fired the coach and the offensive coordinator, and then they faced Arizona. I'm sorry, they have not been tested in the last 4 weeks. You're going to see the same defense that we saw early in the season that was giving up 30 points and that Mahomes had to outscore everybody. I see a track meet in L.A.
Couple notes. Number one, I think this line should probably be 63, but 64, 65. It's not that because Vegas stopped where they're getting equal money on both sides. Again, you got to remember, Vegas's job isn't to put out a line where it should be. Mm-hmm. It's to get money on both sides. Now, on the LA side, you have to remember now they're disheveled. They were going to go practice in Colorado Springs for the altitude, but because of the fires, they took all of their families and all of their players and they moved to Colorado Springs this way anyway. So they were going to go, then they weren't going to go, and now they're there anyway. So now you have them worrying about fires back at home, worried about their houses, and they're all out of town in Colorado Springs practicing. And lastly, I don't have a play on this game yet, but I will say this. Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the NFL. Andy Reid, his last 9 times as a dog, 8-1 against the spread, and even more impressive, Andy's Reid, last 9 times as a dog, 7-2 straight up.
All right, good stuff, guys. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's best bet time. That's up next here on the Wager Talk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the Wager Talk Podcast. We're going to head to the best bet section. 2 out of 3 last week with the best bets. Guys, if you saw our videos this week, we got a special offer for you at Wager Talk. Unfortunately, Kelly did not do the ad the way she was supposed to do it. You know, Kelly does a great job with her ads. Johnny and I told her how we wanted her to do this ad, but she just didn't do it.
Imagine that, not listening to you and Johnny.
Yeah, so unfortunately for you guys, you're going to get the ad the way it was supposed to be done.
Oh, boy.
We've got a special person coming in to do it, and Marcella is going to give you the Wager Talk special for the week. Hey, guys. Sexy 690 at Wager Talk. Get the favorite capper. You can cuddle up with him for 90 days at $6 a day. If you bought a monthly package, $325 per month. That's $975 if you bought it individually, but it's just $540 for 90 days with your favorite guy. You could cozy up with Dave or Ralph or Marco, any of the Wager Talk guys. Check it out, WagerTalk.com.
You're an ugly broad.
And
And
if you go look on Tinder for Marcella and you see Marco's name face there, just make sure you swipe.
All kidding aside, guys, this is a great
boy,
deal.
you know, I was planning on a nice dinner tonight, but I don't want it. I don't want that goddamn thing now.
This is a great deal, guys. You can pick
it
up
is.
because
Good
right
deal.
now everything's going but baseball, and it's going to be that way for the next 3 months. 90 days, every package, every play available. Pick your favorite capper. This deal, all you got to do is use the code SEXY690. You get it for $540.
And let's put it in perspective. People talk about percentages you save. Well, if you buy 2 months of All Access, that's $650. You're paying $540 and you're getting 3 months. So
yeah.
it's better than buying 2 months and getting a month
and
free.
monthly's discounted too.
It's funny, and we all get our biggest bulk sales when we put a 5% play out.
Right, that's $30.
And awesome. Spend the $30 over and over again. That's great. I'm not going to complain about it, and I'm not trying to say don't do it, but Jesus, I mean, why would you not buy a package where you get all those plays anyway? I mean, if there's a 5% play, you're going to get that, plus everything else that the handicapper's putting out. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer as far as we talk about gambling value. Well, this is purchase value. So it's a good idea.
$170 a month, to put it in perspective, is just crazy. I mean, good thing, Johnny promised me to pay me full value if people were taking care of the special.
Yeah.
Now, you guys are just getting screwed because you're getting so much less money. But, Johnny and I have that deal on the side.
Yeah.
So
this coming from the guy that gives everying away for free. So, yeah, that ain't happening.
Anyway,
right.
take advantage of it. Good stuff. Best bet here. Won't make my card because, well, again, it goes back to that same thing that I talked about where if you didn't get to the party on time, it's not a great idea to get to the party late and get a bad number. But, boy, I think Nebraska's in a really good spot this weekend. So I would at least consider this as an add-on, maybe something along those lines. Nebraska pick'em is the current number against Michigan State. Again, this was +2, so you're not really getting the best of it. But at the same time, you're not losing a key number anyway.
+2 to pick them. Right. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
It's not like a +4 to a +3, something like that.
Although last week the number come into play.
It mattered in my Maryland game last week.
It did.
When I gave it out.
You had the winner.
Yep, and it was a play for me. We talked about it earlier. This is just a really advantageous situation for the Cornhuskers, and I think they're going to win the game.
Ralph?
This is a situation where, while it's not the same state, to me it's still a little brother, big brother situation, and the little brother is Middle Tennessee. And anytime you have those CUSA, Tennessee, or Kentucky teams playing that SEC team, to me it's that little brother, big brother. Kentucky had their bubble burst against Georgia. They gave up last week against Tennessee. Now you're You're 0-10 as a favorite your last 10 times. You're laying 17 points. And
16 now.
16, excuse me. You have Brett Stockstill, who is like an 8th-year senior. I don't know how long he's been there.
Well, hey, listen, when you're the coach's son, you can play as long as you want.
And this is their 3rd SEC road game.
Yeah.
And while they got beat bad score-wise, you look at the yardage, and he kept them in those games early in. I think Middle Tennessee, I think they could pull the upset here. It's a potential to be on my card. I'm giving it out of the best bet now. I'll see if it works out to be on my card, but clearly a play I like.
I want to see what the because I might just for the heck of it, I might take
a sprinkle a little bit.
Plus 500.
That's not bad. 5-1.
You cash out one. We're going to True Lux.
Well,
I'll drive you by.
Or I'm just happy going to Joe's if Dave finds
that's fine too.
All right, guys.
It won't be a big bet for me. I'm gonna throw 100 on Middle Tennessee and see if Ralph called an upset.
All right. I'm going to go to a game we talked about earlier, too. I've been riding I did it again. Been riding the Chargers. I'm going against them this week.
Hold on, that was Marcella. Can we bring back Marco now?
No, Marcella would have got it right. I'm going with Denver here. This is just the right spot for them. They've coming off the bye week. If they're ever going to put a game together, it's this one. And honestly, guys, this is one of those twofold games. I'm betting Denver this week, and if I lose this bet with Denver switches to my fade card the rest of the season.
Okay.
Because you put a pork in them. They're done. If you cannot come up with a good game with 2 weeks to prepare and you're playing a hot ball club in your division, they're going to mail it in the rest of the way.
For those that know Kelly in Vegas, and she is the diehard Denver fan and diehard K-State fan. Well, she reached out to me the other time. She saw one of the sports books offshores put Vance Joseph at plus 400 to be the next coach fired. She goes, Rolf, please tell me you have access to that line. She was begging for someone to be able to bet that play for her. So
well, it could happen.
So I tell you what, it might be a horse race between Joseph and Dirk Cutter.
It's going to be close. But I think right now, the favorite right now, we got a few minutes left to post, but right now, Vance Joseph's taking the lead. All right, guys, I want to thank our guest tonight, William Bernanke. Great information from him as always. My boys in the studio, Ralph and Dave. Yeah, Dave. No, well, I got Ralph telling me. I know what he's trying to tell me. We're not going to be here next week. It's Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. All right. My bad, Marcella. I mean, Marco. Sorry.
Yeah, guys, we're not going to have a podcast next week because it is Thanksgiving week. We're going to take the week off, eat a lot of turkey, watch some football games. That's what we're going to do next week. We'll be back the following week. We do want to thank you guys, our listeners. Thank Mark Seidel for making sure we sound good. Big shout out to the Cue Ball in Detroit. Johnny Detroit, he makes sure we get this podcast up everywhere. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, listen on Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and last but not least, you guys, our loyal listeners. Without you guys, we don't have a show. And guys, we try to make it entertaining and informative. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Until next week, I'm Marco D'Angelo. 2 weeks. Until 2 weeks. I'm Marco D'Angelo. Let's cash some tickets.